Stop for a moment, not because these words demand your attention, but because something inside you already paused. If you were truly lost, you wouldn't be searching like this. You wouldn't be reading this. You wouldn't feel that quiet ache in your chest that says, there has to be more than this. Lost people don't question their direction. Lost people don't feel this pull. Lost people don't sense destiny knocking softly. You do. And that's the first truth most people never realize. You were never lost. You were hidden. The lie you were taught about being behind. From the outside, it looks like you fell behind. Others moved ahead. Others were celebrated. Others found their place, their people, their path. And you? You were paused, delayed, removed from the noise. You watched doors open for others while yours stayed closed. You watched people rise while you stayed unseen. You watched timelines pass that were supposed to be yours. And slowly, the most dangerous thought began to form. Maybe I missed my moment. But here's what no one told you. Heaven does not operate on public timelines. What looks like delay to humans is often protection in the unseen. What looks like being behind is often being repositioned, and what looks like being lost is often being intentionally removed from places that would have broken you too early. Why you were pulled away when you needed it most. Think back. There was a moment, maybe many, when life quietly pulled you out of something. A relationship that faded without closure. A path that collapsed right when it seemed secure. A plan that died even though you prayed for it to live. At the time, it felt cruel. You asked, why now? Why me? Why would heaven allow this? But ask yourself this honestly. Who were you becoming in that environment? You were shrinking. You were over-explaining. You were carrying weights you were never meant to hold. You were dimming instincts heaven gave you. So heaven did something radical. It hid you, not as punishment, not as rejection, but as intervention. Hidden is not abandoned. This is where most people misunderstand their season. They assume silence means absence. They assume distance means disinterest. They assume nothing happening means nothing is planned. But heaven works opposite to ego. When something is fragile but valuable, it is not displayed, it is covered. Seeds are buried before they rise. Gold is hidden before it's refined. Chosen ones are removed before they're revealed. You weren't pushed away from the world. You were pulled closer to your core. The quiet season that no one applauds. Let's be honest. This season didn't come with applause. It came with loneliness. People stopped calling. Your presence stopped being requested. Your voice stopped being echoed back. And that hurt. Not because you needed validation, but because you wondered if you mattered at all. Here's the truth. No one says out loud. Visibility attracts attention. Isolation attracts alignment. Heaven does not prepare chosen ones in crowds. It prepares them in silence. Because crowds distort identity. Silence reveals it. And you needed to remember who you were without anyone clapping. Why others couldn't come with you. This part is hard to hear, but necessary. Some people couldn't follow you into this hidden season because they were assigned to an earlier version of you. They knew the old you. They benefited from the old you. They were comfortable with the old you. But heaven wasn't interested in preserving comfort. It was interested in completion. So it removed you from rooms where you were being tolerated, not honored. You were being used, not understood. You were being drained, not developed. Not everyone who loved you was meant to witness who you were becoming. You mistook stillness for failure. This is where the confusion deepened. You weren't moving fast. You weren't achieving loudly. You weren't progressing visibly. So you assumed you were failing. But internally, you were shedding illusions. You were questioning patterns. You were breaking cycles quietly. Heaven slowed your outer world to accelerate your inner one, because speed without clarity destroys destiny. The reason your path didn't make sense. If your life had made sense to others, it wouldn't be yours. Chosen paths rarely look logical in real time. They look fragmented, interrupted, unfair, out of sync. But heaven doesn't consult public opinion. It consults purpose. And your purpose required you to see through people, sit with discomfort, learn restraint, develop discernment. These are not lessons taught on stages. They're taught in rooms where no one is watching. The dangerous gift of being unseen. Here's the paradox. Being unseen hurt you, but it also saved you. Because when no one is watching, your motives get purified, your intentions get tested, your integrity becomes real. You learned who you were without praise. And that's dangerous, in the best way. Because people who know who they are cannot be manipulated by noise. Why you're reading this. Now, timing is everything. You couldn't have heard this message earlier. You would have resisted it. You needed to feel the confusion. You needed to experience the silence. You needed to survive the doubt. Because now, you're ready to understand that. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Nothing was late. You weren't lost. You were being hidden until you could stand without needing permission. A quiet truth to hold on to. Let this settle, not excite. Heaven hides what it plans to use fully, not halfway, not temporarily, not conditionally, fully. And when the covering lifts, it won't need explanation. Pause here. The isolation was preparation, not punishment. There is a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't collapse you. It doesn't break you publicly. It doesn't even look dramatic. It's the pain of being alone while becoming someone new. That was your season, and no one warned you how heavy that would feel. Isolation is the language of preparation. Let's clear something important first. Isolation is not abandonment. Abandonment removes support without purpose. Isolation removes distraction with intention. Heaven isolates what it intends to strengthen. You weren't pushed away because you failed. You were pulled back because too many voices were shaping you. Too many opinions. Too many expectations. Too many projections. And somewhere along the way, your own voice got quieter. So heaven did something that felt harsh. It turned the volume down on everyone else. Why your circle shrunk so suddenly. One day you looked around and realized the circle was smaller, the messages were fewer, the invitations slowed down, the emotional availability disappeared, and you wondered, did I do something wrong? No. What happened was subtler and more precise. You outgrew environments before your confidence caught up. Your energy shifted before your words did. Your awareness expanded before your identity stabilized. People felt the change before you could explain it. And instead of adapting, many quietly stepped away. Not because they hated you, but because they couldn't access you the same way anymore. Heaven will always choose depth over noise. Here's something most people never learn. Noise creates momentum. Silence creates mastery. Momentum can make you visible fast, but mastery makes you unshakable. Heaven chose mastery for you. So it slowed everything down. You were no longer reacting constantly, no longer explaining yourself daily, no longer absorbing chaos as entertainment. You were forced to sit with yourself, and that's uncomfortable, because that's where truth lives, the version of you that couldn't continue. This part matters. The old version of you, The one who needed approval, reassurance, confirmation, could not go where you're meant to go next. That version would have settled too early, trusted too easily, explained too much, compromised too often. So heaven didn't destroy that version. It outgrew it. And growth feels like loss when you're inside it. Why you felt forgotten, but weren't. Silence messes with the mind. When nothing external is happening, the mind starts creating stories. Maybe I'm irrelevant. Maybe I peaked already. Maybe this is all there is. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Heaven was working where your eyes couldn't reach. Behind the scenes, old attachments were loosening. Emotional dependencies were dissolving. False urgency was being removed because the next phase of your life requires stability, not desperation. You were learning to stand without applause. Most people only feel alive when they're seen. You learned to feel grounded when you weren't. That's rare. You kept going without validation. You kept choosing integrity when no one noticed. You kept growing even when no one celebrated it. That rewired you. Now, praise doesn't control you. Rejection doesn't define you. Silence doesn't scare you. And that is preparation most people never receive. Why rushing would have ruined everything. If heaven had rushed your reveal, you would have been admired, but not protected. Visibility without internal alignment creates exposure before strength. You needed emotional boundaries, discernment, self-trust, patience. These aren't taught in fast seasons. They're learned when nothing is happening and you still choose to show up. The loneliness that sharpened you. Let's be honest. This season hurt. Not because you were weak, but because you were honest. You felt the absence deeply. You noticed who stopped checking in. You noticed who disappeared when you stopped giving. That clarity stung, but it also sharpened you. Now you can tell who values your presence versus your usefulness, who listens versus waits to speak, who supports versus competes silently. That awareness is not accidental. Heaven was training your discernment. Before this season, you trusted energy blindly. Now, you feel shifts before words change. You notice patterns before they repeat. You sense misalignment early. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. And discernment is required when your life is about to expand. Why you had to learn patience. The hard way. Patience isn't passive, it's active restraint. It's choosing not to force doors. It's resisting shortcuts. It's waiting even when you could settle. You learned that the hard way because easy patience doesn't last. Now you don't chase timelines. You respect alignment. And that changes everything. You're not behind. You're calibrated. Let this land. You are not behind schedule. You are calibrated. Your timing is precise because your calling is sensitive. Rushed people break things. Prepared people build things that last. Heaven prepared you. Why this season ends differently. Here's what's shifting now. You're no longer asking, when will it happen? You're asking, who do I need to be? That's the sign. When the question changes, the season is ending. A truth few will understand. Some people will never understand why you disappeared. They'll assume you faded, you failed, you settled, let them. Those explanations protect them from facing their own stagnation. You don't need to be understood to be aligned. The reveal doesn't arrive loudly. One last thing before we move forward. The reveal won't come with fireworks. It will come with clarity. You'll wake up one day knowing what to keep, what to leave, where to go, who not to bring, and when you move. It will feel calm, not desperate. That's how you'll know. Pause again.